Is Bubble the right no-code tool for your company? Is even no-code tool right? I get asked this question all the time, and in this video I'll address it, covering why Bubble might be the right no-code tool for your next product. Now, really quickly, what is Bubble? Bubble is one of the most popular and largest no-code tools out there. With Bubble, you can build any type of web app, and right now, recently you can actually build also mobile apps with their new mobile native feature, which is currently in private beta as of April 2025. Bubble is a no-code tool, yet in the industry it competes with other tools that I like calling low-code instead of no-code. So what's the difference? Bubble is a one-size-fits-all tool. You do everything in the box: front-end, back-end, database, plugins, live deployment, branching, and the list goes on and on. Yet a low-code tool, for example Weweb, is a little bit different. Weweb to me is actually visual programming. While Bubble in a way is also visual programming, when you work on Weweb, you are actually writing code. In this case, Vue.js. Of course, Bubble also writes code, but you don't care much about what it is, and that's the whole point. Actually, I have absolutely no idea of what type of code Bubble writes. In the case of Weweb, that's specifically a front-end visual programmer. When you drag and drop elements into the interface using Weweb, you're actually building the front end of your application. But that means you'll then have to connect all of those things with an existing backend using tools like Airtable, Supabase, or even a custom code backend someone on your team built. Flutterflow is a very similar case. You build the front end of your mobile app, and then you have to connect that to a backend. In the case of Flutterflow, you're writing Flutter code without coding. Bubble is a tool where you don't need any custom code, and it's actually designed not to use any. On the other hand, Weweb and Flutterflow actually make it much easier for you to inject custom code within the product. And that pretty much creates more of a low-code development environment. Having said all of this, there are a bunch of pros and cons of using Bubble. On the pro side of things, number one, you're building software in a very controlled environment, which is an all-in-one tool that sits in Amazon Web Services and brings speed of development, QA, and maintenance. Two, you can deploy an app really cheaply, starting at a little bit over $30 a month. Three, you're sitting on the largest no-code tool in the industry. Bubble raised $100 million in their latest round. They employ hundreds of people, have the largest community, and even host an annual event called the BubbleConf in New York City. Thousands of devs and agencies build and sit on Bubble. Four, and some actually a little bit more technical aspects. You can use merge branches and solve specific tech issues by merging them, iterate the product really fast from test to live environment, and use the API connector, which makes it really easy to connect to any external API. Now, let's go over some of the cons of using Bubble. Number one, as I mentioned before, Bubble is not great for injecting custom code. So if you need more of a flexible approach or a low-code environment, then it might not be the right tool for you. Two, Bubble can't export the code. So if you're thinking about building something once and then getting out of there and evolve that into more of a custom code environment, maybe tools like Weweb are best for you, since you can actually export a Vue.js project and keep going someplace else. Three, when building an app in custom code, you can use any libraries you wish, which isn't like that at all when using Bubble. For example, you can't fully access the DOM to manipulate specific things the same way you would do when building custom front-end code. Most of these things can be solved by injecting a little bit of custom code in Bubble, but as I mentioned before, the context is not really great for that. Now, Bubble is a vendor locking tool. Is that a good or a bad thing? As I mentioned, when you build in Bubble, it's an all-in-one solution. You do everything there: the front end, the back end, the QA, the test deployment, and the live deployment, and the list goes on and on. You can't export the code, and if you want to scale the product, you have to do it directly within Bubble, and you just basically can't get out of there. For many people, especially for technical people, this is a very bad thing, and it's actually what stops them from using Bubble. My take here is a little bit different. To me, the fact that Bubble is vendor locking is actually a good thing. And this usually depends a lot on the context on why Bubble is being used in the first place. Usually, Bubble is used by businesses without a tech team or without developers as stakeholders. And also, it's being used by businesses that need to launch something and start iterating and validating really fast, especially startups. Or sometimes it's being used by businesses that simply need specific software built to automate or basically solve ops problem from their own companies. In all of these contexts, being vendor locking is actually great. You have support, you scale on AWS through Bubble's pretty much flexible pricing, and you are in a control environment run by a very stable company. Meaning, you have to worry pretty much about nothing compared to when you're actually building something in custom code. Yes, Weweb is much more flexible and custom code even more, but that takes a lot more expertise in maintenance, security, and above all, tech infrastructure. Here are typical questions non-tech founders ask me all the time about Bubble. 1. How long until I need to migrate to something else? Probably way too long. And I always try to say the same thing. If you have to get out of Bubble, that's probably a happy problem for you. It means you scaled so much, you now need to get something built in a much more of a custom way, basically, with your own team. Now, trust me when I tell you, Bubble itself is not going to limit your product or your business. Number 2, is Bubble good enough to receive thousands of users? Like how many users? I suggest you go read some of the success stories where startups and companies mention having thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of users within a Bubble app. And as I mentioned before, Bubble sits on Amazon Web Services, which is a cloud system that most of the products you use on a day-to-day basis, which are used by millions of users, sit on. So yes, it can scale. Number 3, what features am I not going to be able to build on Bubble that I can build in a custom code environment? Pretty much nothing. Building in Bubble actually still means building a piece of custom software from scratch, even though you're not coding, but you're actually doing some visual programming. Anything you do on a code context can be done here, except for those 2 or 3 things that I mentioned before in the cons. Number 4, what if my product grows so much that I actually need to build a mobile app as a new version? Well, lucky you. As I mentioned, Bubble is now releasing their mobile native feature, which is currently in private beta, and pretty much soon it will be available for all public. My overall take here is this. No-code is great pretty much for any business. And most no-code tools or low-code tools like the ones mentioned before, like Bubble, Weweb, or Flutterflow, are absolutely capable of building and scaling a great product. Just keep in mind all the pros and cons when making the best decision for your own business or your own product. Happy low coding!